What a crazy day in football today. Welcome to the new recap NFL Showtime. Let's get started with the Chiefs and the Saints game, as this was one of the more shocking or one of the bigger games of the noon slot. The Saints offense got out clicking at first, and they pushed it out to a 7-3, and it made it 10-6. And Castle had a chance to lead down to a field goal to make it close at overtime or halftime, but he fumbled, and there was no chance. And then the first play after halftime, the Chiefs fumbled again. Dexter McCluster on a weird little, I don't know, his body was all twisted, and it did not look right. His wrist was hurt. He would not return for the game, for what I saw. But the Saints did capitalize on that. Jimmy Graham 17-6. And then the Saints would then score again after Matt Castle threw an ill-advised interception, and it led to a 6-yard touchdown pass to Jed Collins. Made it 24-6, and we all thought, okay, the Saints are about to pull away with it. The nightmare is over. The first thing that gone right all year. Jamal Charles had different plans, though. He ran a 91-yard touchdown to make it 24-13. We still thought, okay, the Chiefs finally scored. Maybe they'll just hold them down. But then Drew Brees was driving down the field. He was about to score again, but then he interception by Stanford route, and it shut down that drive. And then the Chiefs would lead down again, only to make it 24-19. And then the Chiefs got the Saints in a very dangerous spot. And then Justin Houston got the sack in the end zone and made it 24-21. They had to punt it away, and then the Chiefs just milked down the clock until 3 seconds left. Ryan Suck would then nail a game-tying field goal, 43-yarder, to make it overtime. And Saints fans were in panic mode. It was just scary. And the only drive they had in overtime, it started at their own 2-yard line, and Drew Brees couldn't get much of anything going, 3 straight incompletions, and he was just hoping to not get safety in the end zone. As Matt Castle and Jamal Charles and company led it all the way down, which set up for a chip shot 31-yarder by Ryan Suckup. And the Chiefs win 27-24, and they pull off an amazing coming back, down 24-6. Winning 27-24, and things just get worse and worse for the New Orleans Saints. As the Saints they were floating on all cylinders for the longest while, and give credit to the Chiefs defense. They stepped up greatly today. They got 4 sacks today. I think they only had they only had 1 sack coming into this game. They had 4 sacks today. 3 of them not by Tom Ali, but the other side of the field, Justin Houston. Man, he's a young prospect, and he's looking very, very good. The other sack was reported by Derek Johnson. What I think this means? Well, I think this is probably going to be the turnaround of the Kansas City Chiefs season. They needed something like this. The defense stepped up, and they played pretty well for the most part. I mean, Brees only got 240 yards passing. He did throw 3 touchdowns, but a lot of that was in short field situations where McCluster and Castle committed turnovers, and Brees capitalizing on it. He's one of the best at doing so. But I think this is going to be the turnaround of the Chiefs, and they needed this badly, especially in this stretch of games that they're going through right now. They're at home next week against San Diego. I think they got a good shot to win, especially at home. The Saints, however, have to go to Green Bay to take on the Packers. That's going to be a tough one for the Saints, and they're in danger of going 0-4 unless they get it together. Let's go on to the great Texas-sized proportion of matchups. Andy Dalton versus RG3, Cincinnati, Washington. This game, it started out with a huge 73-yard touchdown to AJ Green, and it was a trick play by Mohamed Sanu. He's the wide receiver for those who don't know or never heard of the guy. And the very first play of the game for the Bengals. And then Andy Dalton would make a boneheaded mistake, throwing an interception at his own end zone. Yes, the defender was right there. Dalton threw a little screen, and then Rob Jackson picked it off right at the end zone and got a score off that. I thought that's probably going to be on the not top 10 of Sports Center, because that was just a very, very ill-advised, dumb play. But anyway, we go on, and then Armin Benz would then catch it, make it 14-7. The Bengals would then eventually push it out to a 24-7, and then became 24-10 halftime lead. RG3 and Alfred Morris would lead the attack and come back and tie it up at 24 all. But then Andy Dalton showed up, did work, and throw 2 touchdown passes in the fourth, made it 38-24. And then Griffin would get a touchdown with 3:35 left, 38-31. Kick an onside kick, almost get it back. But they did have one more chance, but they came up just short as the Redskins would fall to the Bengals at an RG3's home debut, 38-31. This was a much needed win for the Cincinnati Bengals as they're in a tough division. They need all the wins they can get. So, and the Redskins, they're in trouble. I mean, we all know they lost Brian Orakpo for the year. That defense, I mean, RG3 can only do so much, but if that defense doesn't show up, they're going to be in trouble for the rest of the season. And they're already in a tough division as is. And it's going to get probably a lot worse for the Redskins before it gets better. And that's not something they want to hear right now. But the Bengals got a huge win. They got to go on the road to face Jacksonville next week. Good chance to go 3-1. And then the Redskins have to travel to Tampa Bay to battle the Buccaneers. So that's that. Speaking of the Buccaneers, they faced the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys were hoping to rebound, and they did. Not so much on the offense, but the defense. It was a great defensive effort for really both sides. But Dallas just made one more play more than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Bucs just couldn't pull it off as the Cowboys went 16-10. It was a big defensive effort. Romo did throw 283 yards, but no touchdowns. He did throw a pick. DeMarco Murray only had 38 yards and a touchdown. They only had 38 yards altogether because the rest of the run, Tony Romo had 4 carries for 1 yard. Felix Jones 1 carry -1 yard. Josh Freeman only threw for 110 yards on 10 of 28 completions. It's either the defense, the Cowboys defense, or Josh Freeman just not playing up to what he should be. But either way, the Cowboys pulled it off. And the Buccaneers are now 1-2, looking to win at home against Washington next week. Dallas has a Monday nighter against the Chicago Bears. Now let's move on to one of the more upset specials of the day: the Minnesota Vikings. Here I said the 49ers were probably the best team in the NFC, and they were a dominant force. But going on the road and losing to the Vikings, that's a little cause for concern. And no disrespect to the Vikings, they got a good core of Adrian Peterson, and Christian Ponder is a good young quarterback. But I still think the 49ers had more talent, but sometimes talent doesn't win every game, you know? I mean, it's about making plays, and the Vikings made more plays. Christian Ponder on his feet and on the arm and on throwing as well. He threw 198, 2 touchdowns, but he also had a 23-yard run in the early second quarter, or mid-second quarter, excuse me. It pushed out a 17-3 lead. 49ers did catch up in the third, made it a 4-point game, but then Christian threw another touchdown to Kyle Rudolph, the red-nosed tight end, and the Vikings did it. The Vikings won 24-13. I'm very impressed. They're 2-1 right now. A very impressive victory for the Vikings of Minnesota. And do I think it's a bad loss for the 49ers? Yes. But do I think it's the end of the world? No. But the Vikings do have to travel to Detroit next week, as the 49ers will have to go to New York to battle the Jets. Now, the Jets, they took on the Dolphins today, and they were looking to rebound as well. But they struggled for the longest while, though, and give credit to the Dolphins' defense for making that happen. It was 10-3 at halftime, the only touchdown coming on a 1-yarder by Daniel Thomas, not Reggie Bush. And then the third quarter is where it all started to fall apart for Miami a little bit, as Tannehill threw a pick 6 to LaRon Landry. And then Dolphins would drive down the field and give it to Texas A&M alumni Jaworski Lane, 17-10. The Dolphins have a lot of Aggies on their team. Ryan Tannehill, Jaworski Lane. And I'm sure the Aggie fans remember who he was. But the Jets would then fire back. They got a field goal, make it 17-13. And then with 3 minutes and 1 second left, Sanchez throws a touchdown to Jeremy Curley, 2017. Miami would drive down the field, milk down the clock, get tied up, and go to overtime. And remember the new overtime rules. It's if they get a field, if the team with the first possession only gets a field goal, they get another chance. This wasn't the case in this game, as the Jets win 23-20 over the Dolphins on a game winner by Nick Folk. Now there was 3 overtimes. It was noon game. Chiefs, Saints, Jets, Dolphins. But first, let me say the Jets. They're going to take on the 49ers next week. That's going to be a tough one. And the Dolphins have to travel to Arizona to battle the Cardinals. Now, anyway, back to what I was saying. One of the more shocking games that I think the Titans and the Lions, um, and it was 10-6. It was 10-6 at the end of the first quarter, advantage Tennessee off a punt return where he flea flickered over there, and he ran all, and Tommy Campbell ran all the way for a 10-6 lead, and then Jake Locker threw a 61-yard touchdown pass to Jared Cook, 17-6, and then both teams would each get a field goal, making it 29 Titans at halftime. Third quarter, Mike LaShore got a 1-yard touchdown, 20-16. Keep in mind that Kevin Smith did not play today for the Detroit Lions, but anyway. And then the fourth quarter is when all the scoring began. Notice it's 20-16 right now, or 20-16 by the end of the third quarter. Lions would then chip in a field goal, and then they would get a Nate Burleson touchdown, 27-20, and a 2-point conversion to Burleson again is good. And then a kick return for a touchdown by Darius Renaud, 27-27, and then Jake Locker would then get the ball back with a few minutes to go, and he would throw a 71-yard touchdown pass to Nate Washington, 34-27, and then tragedy struck again. The Lions fumbled, and Alteron Werner ran it back for 41-27. He's like, okay, the Titans are going to get their first win. But then Sean Hill comes in because I believe Stafford got hurt, and he would throw a touchdown, making it 41-34. And then they would get the onside kickback, so they get one more shot. Sean Hill chunks it down the field, and Duck Flutie style gets the touchdown to Titus Young, 41-41, overtime, and this is where the new overtime rules would come into play. Titans kick a 26-yarder by Rob Baronis, but the Lions still had a chance. They were trying to drive down the field. It was a 4th and 1 at the Titans' 7-yard line, and the Lions just couldn't pull through. They got stuffed at the line, and the Titans shocked the Lions 44-41. And I think it's panic time for the Detroit Lions. They're already in a tough division as it is. Do you think it's panic time? Comment, vote, subscribe, whatever. But I think it's panic time for Detroit, and this is not what they needed. A loss to the Titans, and the Titans are not destined to do many things this year. And it's just really bad. But Chris Johnson had his best performance of the year, but unfortunately it was only for 24 yards rushing and a 5-yard catch. So if you have him on your fantasy team, now it's probably the best time to bench him. But Michael LaShore, a guy the Lions drafted 2 years ago, thought they would be something. He showed up today because Kevin Smith couldn't play, and LaShore got 100 yards and a touchdown. But at the same time, with Stafford getting hurt, I believe the Lions are in trouble. I mean, they're facing a Vikings team who doesn't look as vulnerable as people want to believe, and that's going to be a tough game next week for the Lions, and they got to get it together before it's too late. And meanwhile, the Titans will take on the Texans next week. All right, let's get to the Bills. They got 2 wins in a row now, but C.J. Spiller got hurt his shoulder in the game on a 32-yard touchdown pass from Ryan Fitzpatrick. Bills jumped out to a 14-0 lead. Trent Richardson made it 14-7. It was kind of back and forth. Then it became 17-14 by the end of the third, and then Steve Johnson made it 24-14, and nothing else really happened afterwards as Whedon would throw a pick to ruin any chance of a comeback. But the big story in this game was C.J. Spiller getting hurt. Time of absence will remain to be seen, but it's not good. Especially, but the good news is Fred Jackson is coming back soon. The bad news is it's still an injury and it hurts. So, but the Bills take on the Patriots. It's at Buffalo next week, and the Browns have to go to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Now, let's go to Jacksonville and Indianapolis. Jacksonville pulled away, and we thought it was a really back and forth game for the most part. Jones-Drew having the big play made it 59-yard touchdown, made 14-10. The only touchdown, the Colts have thrown 2 touchdowns before time, and one of them was a 40-yarder to T.Y. Hilton, new receiver. Another touchdown was Moelde Moore, the former back from Pittsburgh, and it was back and forth field goals. Jacksonville was 16-14 for a while, and then Vanna Vinatieri hit to what we thought was the clutch field goal, one of the clutchest field goal kickers in the game. But a missed tackle would lead to a Cecil Shorts the third touchdown from Blaine Gabbert, 80 yards, and Jacksonville shocks Indianapolis. I don't know if it's much of a shock, but they won nonetheless, 22-17. Both teams are now 1-2. Give credit to the Jaguars for winning, but give no credit to the Colts for bad tackling, and they couldn't bring him down. But all the credit in the world must go to Blaine Gabbert, Cecil Shorts III, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. But really, Maurice Jones-Drew, he carried most of the load for the offense, 177 yards and a touchdown. Gabbert only threw for 155 and a touchdown, but they did get the win, so all is one. Jacksonville has to face the Bengals next week. It is at Jacksonville, and the Colts have a bye week, and they'll come back week 5 to take on the Packers at Indy. So tough break for the Colts. And then another news, we had the Bears. They bounced back against the St. Louis Rams 23-6. Sam Bradford struggled all game long. Jay Cutler played much better than he did the week before. Matt Forte did not play, but Michael Bush would step up to the plate. He had 55 yards and a touchdown. And the Bears also had a pick 6 from Major Wright. And the Bears cruised to a 23-6 win. And it was really the only blowout in the noon game section. But that will do it for today. Or that will do it for this section anyway. Be sure to come back for my afternoon videos.